So this morning I got a question from a friend of mine who's growing okra for the first time ever. And I actually thought it was a really great question because it's also one that I had when I first started growing okra. Even though I've seen my parents and grandparents grow it for most of my life, growing it myself, I still had a lot of doubt, and I was curious exactly what was the perfect time. Now, let me start by showing off a baby okra because this is what the little flower looks like right as it's about to open. You can see some ants hanging out on my okra pods, but no worries. And this is just a baby okra where the flower's just fallen off. So it's super tiny. It's about half an inch, if that. So this baby okra, believe it or not, will go from this size to 5 to 6 inches within 1 to 2 days, which is insane to me how fast okra really grow, especially if you're in your hot, humid climate or even a hot, dry climate. If you're in a climate where it's really cool, your plants may not grow as fast because okra adapted to be grown in very hot climates, and that's where they really thrive and grow fast. So I wanted to come out here and show off this plant in particular because it does have okra pods of all sizes. It has this unopened flower. It has an okra pod that's just a little bit bigger than the one I just showed you right here. Then it has this okra pod, which is probably a good 4 inches long, but that doesn't include this part, which is actually curved. Usually they're pretty straight. See how this one's growing a little more straight. So believe it or not, this looks kind of small in the camera right now. It's about the size of my thumb. And even though it's small, this is not a bad size to pick okra at. And some prefer it this size, especially if they're pickling. My dad's always told me he cannot stand okra that's bigger than 2 to 3 inches because it's just too woody and he doesn't like the texture. But I would say 4 to 5 inches is perfect. The only okra that I've seen that can grow pretty long and not be too pithy is Louisiana Velvet. It has really soft velvety pods and they tend to get a bit longer without getting pithy and woody. And what I mean is it literally feels like you're chewing on a stick after okra's been on the plant too long. So I would say this okra right here is a pretty good size. You can see it's actually longer than my thumb. So all you have to do to pick this is twist and pull. It usually doesn't damage the okra plant. You can cut it off and see, that's it. Just twist and pull it right off. It's not too hard to do. It does look a little funny. Might have gotten too close, but nope, it's fine. So it doesn't bother the plant for you to twist it off because these plants are really sturdy. You can see just how sturdy this is. This okra, I'm probably gonna leave on for a little bit longer, and for a little bit longer, I mean a few more hours, because okra can literally in this heat go from this size to way too big in a matter of hours. I like to check the plant in the morning and then again at night just to make sure that the pods aren't growing too quickly, because I don't want to leave a pod until the next day and then come back and it's way too big to eat, and that does happen. So a good rule of thumb, especially if you live in a climate that's as humid and as hot as Southeast Texas, check your okra in the morning and in the evening if you can, and when in doubt, go ahead and pick them a little bit smaller like this one. That's a lot better than leaving it on and it getting way too big to eat. Unless, of course, you're going to save them from seed and then you want to just leave them alone and let them grow. I never have a problem saving okra for seed because it never fails that at some point during the summer months, I get way too busy to make it outside to my garden, and okra just grow way bigger than they should be and they don't have a good texture to eat. So when that happens, I always just leave those okra on the plants and let them serve as my seed pods for the following year. Now, since this is my first year that I'll ever be saving seeds from this particular variety, which is heavy hitter, I want to be really selective about what I'm growing and definitely choose to save seeds from the plants that do have the highest production. But I'm going to be honest and say, if this plant is already about 3 foot tall and it's producing okra this early in the season and doing so well, I'm gonna probably save seeds from it. Hopefully it continues to thrive, because this is one healthy plant. It's tall, it's producing well, it survived the crazy storms that we had, the crazy humid weather, the high winds. I mean, I'm really impressed. And I said it in a video that I posted the other day. I didn't have a good experience last year. I think there was a seed mix-up. I got the wrong seeds. They looked to be crust. This year, these heavy hitter okra are already making quite the comeback. So it definitely am recommending this variety. I always try a variety at least twice to make sure that I like it, unless it's just absolutely horrible and grows really badly in our climate. But so many people commented and said, hey, give that heavy hitter okra another chance. I really think if you get good seeds, you'll like it. And they were right. So if you're wondering when's a good time to harvest okra, that's kind of how you know. Here's a up close view of the size of this okra. Mind you that my hands are not very big in size, but that's a pretty good size. I would say if you're really big on texture, about 3 inches long is the maximum. If you're not so big on texture, 4 inches, no more than 5. But if you get some that are a little bigger or smaller, you'll be fine. I would just say the best way to know when to harvest okra is test it out over the summer months, if it's your first time growing it, and really see at what size you like it the best, because everyone has different preferences when it comes to texture and size, and I for one am a bit picky when it comes to certain textures. So I think that this size is just perfect for cutting up okra, especially if you want to bread them or fry them. I usually recommend cutting off the bottom part and this little top part right here. However, one of my favorite ways that I learned to cook okra is to saute it in a pan with some tomatoes and onions and then add eggs to it. It sounds silly, but with some garlic butter to saute it, it's actually really incredible. So there's a couple of ways other than frying we can eat okra, especially soups, gumbo, sauteing it, adding it as a topper to your steaks. There are just so many things you can do, and I've heard of a lot of people having some success with freeze drying okra lately. We do not have a freeze dryer. It is something that I will consider in the future, but as far as money and space, it's just not in the cards right now. However, I love me some dehydrated okra that's been seasoned. I love all kinds of vegetables that have been seasoned really well and are great for eating. So I hope this helps you guys out trying to figure out what size you need to harvest your okra at, and also if you are curious what all you can do with it or how big the plants are. Hopefully this video will guide you into the right direction until you figure out exactly what variety works best for you and what your personal preferences are, especially if you're a first-year grower. I will say I'm going to continue to post videos about my okra randomly all summer long, because I had so many questions when I started growing. I know so many others have questions, and still, when you're out and growing plants for the first time or the second time, it's nice to see how they grow, what the fruit size looks like, all of these things that you may not know and may not have access to that knowledge. So you'll see me post a very quick video about things here and there, and may just be size, variety, color, how the fruit looks, all of those random things, because you just never know what works for you until you try it or you see a little video about it. So I hope this helps out answering some questions. As always, I appreciate you checking out my garden and listening to me go on a little tangent about okra.